For centuries, one of the most famous facts about Napoleon Bonaparte was that he was short. The idea of the Napoleon complex even became a psychological term used to describe people of short stature who overcompensate with aggression. But what if I told you that this is completely false? What if Napoleon was not only not short but actually taller than the average Frenchman of his time? History is full of distortions, and Napoleon's height is one of the greatest misconceptions of all time. Today, we'll uncover why this myth started, how it spread, and what the actual truth is about Napoleon's height. How tall was Napoleon really? Napoleon Bonaparte was officially measured at 5 feet 2 inches in French units at the time of his death in 1821. However, this is where the confusion begins. The French inch, pouce, was larger than the British inch. When converted to modern measurements, Napoleon's height was actually 5 feet 7 inches, 1.69 meters. This means that Napoleon was either exactly average or slightly taller than the typical Frenchman of the early 19th century, whose average height was around 5 feet 5 inches, 1.65 meters. Far from being short, Napoleon was actually of respectable height for his era. Where did the short Napoleon myth come from? If Napoleon wasn't short, why did this myth spread? There are several reasons. 1. British propaganda during the Napoleonic Wars. Britain and France were bitter enemies. The British press constantly mocked Napoleon in satirical cartoons, portraying him as a tiny, angry man. The image of a small, furious dictator became a powerful tool in war propaganda. The British wanted to humiliate him, and exaggerating his height was a clever way to do it. 2. The confusion of measurement systems. As mentioned earlier, Napoleon's height was recorded in French inches, which were longer than English inches. When British translators misinterpreted his height, they mistakenly reported it as 5 feet 2 inches in their own units, making him seem much shorter than he really was. 3. His personal bodyguards were giants. Napoleon's elite imperial guard was made up of extremely tall soldiers, many of them standing well over 6 feet, 1.83 meters. Compared to them, Napoleon may have seemed shorter, even though he was actually above average height for a typical Frenchman. What did Napoleon himself say about his height? Napoleon was aware of the rumors about his height and often made jokes about it. He once said, "If I were 2 inches taller, I would be feared even more." This suggests that he knew how his image was being distorted but didn't see it as a major issue. He was confident enough in his abilities to not be bothered by the myth. Interestingly, in his personal letters, he never mentioned any concerns about his height. His writings focused on politics, military strategy, and philosophy. If he had been insecure about it, we would likely see signs of it in his personal correspondences, but there are none. How did Napoleon's height compare to other historical figures? To put things into perspective, let's compare Napoleon's height with other famous leaders of his time. Napoleon Bonaparte minus 5 feet 7 inches, 1.69 meters, Duke of Wellington, his greatest rival minus 5 feet 9 inches, 1.76 meters, King Louis XVI, before the Revolution minus 5 feet 8 inches, 1.73 meters, Tsar Alexander I of Russia minus 5 feet 10 inches, 1.78 meters, King Frederick the Great of Prussia minus 5 feet 5 inches, 1.65 meters. As you can see, Napoleon was not unusually short. In fact, he was taller than Frederick the Great, who was considered one of history's greatest military leaders. Did Napoleon have a Napoleon complex? The so-called Napoleon complex suggests that short people tend to be more aggressive to compensate for their height. But since Napoleon wasn't actually short, does this theory even apply to him? Historical records show that Napoleon was confident, highly intelligent, and strategic, but not irrationally aggressive. Many of his greatest military victories came from careful planning, not reckless anger. The idea that he was trying to compensate for something is simply a historical distortion. Other myths about Napoleon. Napoleon's height is just one of many myths about him. Here are some others. Did Napoleon always keep his hand inside his coat? No, this was a common pose for men of his era. It was considered a sign of dignity and self-control. Was Napoleon French by birth? No. He was born on the island of Corsica, which had only recently become part of France. His native language was Italian, and he spoke French with an accent. Did Napoleon poison his own troops in Egypt? This is an exaggeration. He ordered morphine for terminally ill soldiers who were dying from the plague, but he did not deliberately kill his men. So, what does this mean? Napoleon's height is one of history's biggest misunderstandings. The truth is, Napoleon was taller than the average Frenchman of his time. The myth of his short stature was British propaganda. The confusion came from different measurement systems. His height was exaggerated by comparison to his tall bodyguards. Conclusion: the power of misinformation. Napoleon was one of the greatest military minds in history, yet a simple misinterpretation of measurements and propaganda created a false image that persists to this day. His story proves how easily misinformation can spread and how history can be distorted by politics, media, and culture. So next time someone jokes about Napoleon being short, you'll know the real truth, and you can correct them with the facts. Verziark, 7000 Simvil Sivan Dardvida Hardolgun, Miracle Faklalosengeinder. YouTube videos usen Baslankta Dixensu Alvi Mifundidrinais Olivar. G. Args Uzu Super Hysen Ida Hardi Agenis Derm Kistiasens.